a key piece of news
to the British. Saeed Mohammed Abdullah
Hassan, the leader of the Somali
dervish movement that has fought Britain, Italy, and Ethiopia for
20 years,
is dead.
by Somali peoples had been colonized by the European powers relatively late in the 19th century. By the 1890s, the region was loosely divided between the British, the French, and the Italians. This foreign presence led to a resistance movement and a religious revival led by Saeed Mohammed Abdullah Hassan, which fought a bitter campaign against the British, the Italians, and their Somali allies for 20 years. In this episode, we'll take a look at events in Somalia up until the death of Hassan and the end of his movement exactly 100 years ago in January 1921. In 1895, Somalia was a region mostly under the influence of the British and Italians, who'd established colonial rule but mostly stayed in a few port cities and exercised their power indirectly through local proxies. They had little presence or influence in the interior of the region. The Italians had treaties with the local sultanates of Ogbia and Mejertain. Hassan had studied Islam in the British protectorate of Aden under the influential cleric Muhammad Saleh, who preached a very strict brand of Islam associated with the Wahhabist revival in Arabia. Dulbuhanta and Bakeri tribes were overrepresented in the dervish movement. Hassan made this pan-tribalism explicit. I also inform you that I am a pilgrim and a holy fighter, and have no wish to gain power and greatness in this world. Neither am I of the tribes Dolbohanta, the Warsangli, the Mejertain, nor the Ogadi. And I am not of the hypocrites. I am a dervish, hoping for God's mercy and consent and for disputes between Somali tribes. The mullah listened to the British envoys, but he never did send a response, and he remained isolated in his camp until January 1921, when he died of influenza, even though there's still some debate about the exact date. His last message to his followers reflected both his religious and nationalist beliefs. There is no prosperity or peace that can come from entering into treaties and agreements with the infidel, for he cannot be trusted. Even if I failed to get a flag that would be flown for me between here and Nairobi, have I failed to get God's mercy and the gift to see the Prophet's face? His supporters divided the remaining herds of livestock and mostly returned to their tribes. Mullah Hassan's dervish movement was one of the most significant of its kind in the history of colonial Africa. Part Islamic revival, part Somali nationalism, it was central to the politics of the Horn of Africa for 20 years. Although his movement ended with his death, Mullah Hassan has gone down as a major figure in Somali history. The Mad Mullah to the British, an African Napoleon to the Italians, and to many others, a great poet, an anti-colonial resistance leader, and the father of Somali nationalism. The end of the dervish movement did not bring an end to the instability in Somalia. Tribes loyal to the Ogbia and Mejertain sultanates lodged competing claims immediately after Hassan's death, and the British and Italian colonial interests remained. Peace in the Horn of Africa was a long way off.